Hello and welcome to this video. We're talking about query expansion and query responsiveness in this video. So I've got a quick summary here of what query expansion means and why you should care. I think this will be one of the big SEO concepts that people will implement more and more coming in 2024. We've already seen it in 2023 with some of the big sites implementing this concept and trying to improve their pages. When I've implemented this for my own clients, I've seen huge results. So I'm really excited to share this with you now. So what is query expansion, first of all? Whenever you have a keyword that Google sees, let's say our keyword is depression, Google is trying to expand that keyword into other potential searches or topics that you might be interested in. Because this is a broad keyword, it could be many things that you want to know about depression. You could, for example, want immediate help, meaning to talk to somebody if you're feeling suicidal. You could be wanting to know about the symptoms of depression. You want to know maybe about the cure of depression. I think you get the idea. And during the query, Google is expanding these. Actually, basically, Google has already in the background made these connections. So they've basically mapped this query to the page and then expanded that to all the other queries that that page could rank for. So if we have here a page on the right-hand side, Google would have looked at what all the potential queries are that this page could rank for. Let's say if they have a heading about symptoms of depression, then Google would create that mapping to say that's a keyword that they might be able to rank for. And if somebody just types in depression here, then Google says, okay, let's expand depression into symptoms of depression and then match it to this page because we've already mapped out that this page might be a good fit for even the symptoms of depression or cure of depression and so on. So that's the idea between query expansion. Basically, it's another way of understanding Google intent, Google's search intent, and how Google understands that at the time. Google also might add synonyms to the keyword. So the keyword car might be expanded into automobile or vehicle, for example. And that's partly why probably the synonyms still have a good impact on search rankings, because you now have a direct match for these expanded queries on your page if you include synonyms. It could also be about personalized information. So Google stores, of course, a lot of information about users. If Google knows that you have a baby, or you're pregnant and you type in massage, maybe Google expands massage specifically into pregnancy massage for you. So there can be some personalized context to that. There are some Google patterns that talk about personalizing these. I think the other ones are not as interesting here, the other points, because I mainly want to get to query responsiveness for you. And that is how well the page responds to all possible queries. And that needs to be put in a bit of a caveat because, of course, you shouldn't respond to all queries that are possible under a given topic. That would be impossible. But exactly to the queries that could match that user, that's what you need to focus on. Additionally, you need to consider your own website architecture, meaning if you have already another page about, let's say the topic is still depression, you have another page already about depression symptoms, then you need to be careful of how far you want to cover that topic within the page. The second point here is that you need to look for what the competitors have already covered. If the competitors have a whole page about depression symptoms, but you don't have a single page about it, then you also need to open a new page about that topic in order to basically beat their topical coverage and offer the same informational depth that the competitor has. And you will need to avoid covering the symptoms too deeply on the main article, which would be, let's say, about what is depression. That's your main article. You should not cover too deeply about the symptoms, because if all competitors have separate pages for the symptoms, you also need a separate page. So the symptoms about depression page needs to have a lot more detail than the what is depression page. So this is a big consideration that you need to put into your content at the time of writing your topical map. So let's look at what this actually looks like in real time. So I've got here one other example of how query expansion could work, how to grow tomatoes in Germany. Could be also expanded into how to grow tomatoes in Berlin or how to grow tomatoes in cold climate. I've got a few other expanded terms here, which are a bit more generic, but the other examples that I just gave about cold climate or specific German cities might be more relevant actually for expansion here. Okay, let's jump into some examples. So we will stick with the query depression. I've asked ChatGPT to expand that. We can see here we've got types of depression, symptoms of depression, causes of depression, treatment and management, prevention, statistics. So let's keep these in mind while we look at the actual search results. So here we've got the search results in Australia for depression. We have the featured snippet from Mayo Clinic, and then we have Beyond Blue, which is the homepage. So this is an exciting example that we come back to. Let's first look at the Mayo Clinic article here and see what they might have covered. So right in, we can see inside of their title, they have symptoms and causes, which would tell us that they may not have a separate article about symptoms because it looks like they have put all of that in here. So depression symptoms in children, older adults, risk factors. This could be an expanded query, you know, who's at risk of depression. Okay, not too many headings here actually on this page, apart from the symptoms as far as I can see. So most of it is about symptoms by the looks of it. Cool, let's look at another page here. Again, we have the symptoms, contributing factors and prevention, diagnosis and treatment, self-care. What's better? So there's a few issues that they have here with their pages. What's better, rather than put a heading like self-care, expand this or change this into a question format where you're basically asking, can you treat depression by yourself, or is there a way to make depression better by yourself? Basically change this to a heading that would be relevant for what a user might search about this. So if we read through this, saying do activities you enjoy, stay connected to friends, exercise, stick to regular eating and sleeping, cut down on alcohol and drugs. Okay, so this could be like good habits to have for depression. This could be like, so if I was to write this heading, what are good habits to help treat depression or lessen the symptoms? But most of these seem to be kind of habits or things you can do yourself. And putting this into a question format helps Google because self-care is not something that they can expand into any queries. It's very hard for Google to expand self-care into this question, right? It's just so different. Whereas habits is most of it was what this here talks about, and things that you can do yourself. So that's a good example of how you can improve the responsiveness of your web pages. But one other takeaway here is that if you wanted to rank for the keyword depression, you would have to talk a lot about symptoms and potentially contributing factors or risk factors of depression, because the top articles have written about that. Okay, so here we also have treatment. The next concept that we can talk about is where to basically draw that border. I'll just come back here to draw on my screen for a second. So you will have to decide of what topics should still inside of your article, and we'll make this here inside of the article, and what's outside. So clearly we have seen that symptoms is inside. I'm going to spell this wrong 1,000 times, so we leave it at that. Symptoms, risk factors, treatment. We've seen one article only has that, so that's a question mark. Should this be inside of the article, or should treatment be outside of the article? And that's a question we would need to research the search results for, to see if other people have specific pages on that. If other people have specific pages, then we can move treatment into our supplementary content towards the bottom, which could be kind of, you can think of it like an FAQ section, like what are treatment options for depression. And then from here, you can link to the depression article, link to article here about the treatment, which that would be a separate article that you're creating, because all competitors may have a separate article about the treatment. So I hope that makes sense, that you do need to spend quite a bit of time to compare and to plan out what kind of headings should be in what article. And to wrap this up, we will look at this page here, which is quite funny because it doesn't have any queries on it, meaning it doesn't talk about symptoms. It does not talk about anything else. So the reason why this is kind of hilarious is because you can override the query responsiveness simply by having so many backlinks and so much authority and brand strength. This is a huge brand in Australia. I believe they do TV ads as well. They've got a lot of funding. And so what has happened is that Google has ranked their homepage, because apparently they have not invested a single dollar in SEO. So they don't have an article apparently about depression symptoms. And here we can see that their homepage is ranking for that keyword. Let's see here, depression treatment, if they're also coming up for that. Yeah, also the homepage is coming up. So that shows you, if Google does not have any other pages to rank but the homepage, that the SEO is kind of poor, right? Because if they are the depression authority in Australia, I would argue they should write an article about depression treatment and depression symptoms. But it looks like they haven't, or at least they haven't properly SEO'd that article. But yeah, this is just showing us that query responsiveness can be overwritten if you have so much authority that Google just knows you are kind of the go-to resource for depression in Australia. Then Google will show you for that keyword, even though you don't answer that query at all. So that's interesting to think about, kind of the hierarchy of ranking factors. While query responsiveness is a strong factor, but of course, if you have insane authority for a topic and user behavior and click data that Google has about you, then it's not going to be as relevant, and you can't beat pages that have that. So lastly, I want to wrap up by saying that query responsiveness is a very important concept that, if you implement it correctly, can absolutely boost the overall quality scores of your site. And it's a huge factor in terms of the helpful content update. If we think about how Google can understand content, that's a big part of it, to see if you answer all of the queries for that particular page that a user might have in the most concise way. That is literally the definition of quality content. And therefore, if you can achieve that site-wide, you will do a lot better in the next Google updates as well. I hope this was a helpful video, and I'll see you in the next one.